So I've been playing with the Osborne, and I'm trying to get the serial port to work. And I was able to turn on the printer and print through the serial port, 1200 baud. Seems to work just fine. I actually learned some things, but I couldn't get data to go the other direction. I couldn't get data to go from a terminal emulator into the Osborne. I could get it to go from the Osborne out, but not from the outside in. So let's take a look at the schematic and see what's going on here. So this is the Osborne 1, the OCC1. It's a 4-layer board, which is amazing for the day. 1081. Anyway, this is the serial section. So here in the middle, let's see if I can draw on this thing. Here in the middle is a UART. So this is a 6850 UART. And then over here is a clock divider. So the clocks come in at 2 microseconds pulses and 4 microsecond pulses, and they come into this thing, and you can set it up so that it can generate the right baud rate, the 1200 baud rate. Okay. So let's take a look at where the data comes in, because that's what isn't working. So on the front panel, there are 2 connectors. There is a 25-pin connector that is the normal RS-232. So this is these are the pins for the 25-pin version. And there's also a little down at the bottom here. There's a little 9-pin version for the modem. Now the modem has some interesting pins on it. It has plus 12 volts coming out, so you can power up your modem at 12 volts. And then all of the data levels are TTL here. But at RS-232, they can go plus and minus voltages is what they're supposed to do. And because we have plus and minus voltages, let's take a look at where the data comes out. The data comes out on transmit here. And you can see it's coming out of an op amp. And the op amp is set up to be, let's see here, 12 volts is coming in here, and negative 5 volts is coming in here. So the op amp is running at plus 12 to minus 5. So it's giving you a good swing for RS-232 devices. I mentioned once before that they needed to generate minus 5, and they do that up here at the top. Let's get rid of this. And they're doing it, oops, oh dear, I went too far. There we go. They did it up here, right here, with a 555 timer, and then a little charge pump. They have the diodes here, and they're rectifying it onto this capacitor. So they're generating minus 5 volts here, and then they're going to be using it. There's actually a Zener diode over here to make sure it's minus 5 volts. All right. So anyway, that's the way they get plus and minus voltages. Now, since plus and minus voltages are also coming in, let's take a look at the receive path. It also goes into an op amp, and the op amp converts it into TTL levels. Now, this op amp runs off of 0 to 5 volts, so it's going to swing from 0 to 5 volts, but it can take larger voltages on the input. Now, this is kind of a special op amp, and we'll get to that later. But here's the whole thing: is that the output section worked, but the input section didn't work. So I came in with an oscilloscope, and I monitored pin 3, and I monitored pin 2, and I had swings on both of them. So when I output things, I could see levels change here. And when I typed on the keyboard, I could see levels change here in the RX data. Okay, so everything looks fine. If we go farther into the path, okay, we're coming in here. We're going to go through R27. So when I probe on this end of R27, I got the right swings. But when I probed on this side of R27, all I saw was ground. And I thought, well, that's not right. And so I really didn't understand. The only thing that could go wrong is this op amp was fried. So I went ahead and I removed the op amp. I'll insert some pictures here. So this op amp is a 14-pin device. It's a quad op amp. So I desoldered it. I went to the store. There's a local store in Silicon Valley. If you live in Silicon Valley, you've never been there. It's called Anchor Electronics. They're not a sponsor, but Anchor Electronics has been there since the dark ages, and every once in a while I go there for a part. So I went to Anchor, got a new part, 50 cents, and let's pop it in. So I when I desoldered the op amp, I went and I looked at pin 3. And sure enough, pin 3 was now toggling up and down. When I removed the op amp, now it works. So the op amp was definitely pulling it down to ground. Now, I was a bit confused at first. So this is not a normal op amp. This is not a voltage input op amp. This is a current voltage op amp. You need a current coming into it. Well, how do you get a current? Well, you get a current by putting a voltage through a resistor. So R27 sends a current into the op amp. Now the op amp is pin 3 is going to be at ground, but it's going to its voltage is at ground, but it's expecting an input current. So I wasn't probing it correctly. But what I did do is I probed pin 4. Now pin 4 should be toggling up and down, and pin 4 was stationary. It was not toggling up and down. So there was definitely something wrong, something wrong. So I thought, well, geez, did I get a bad op amp? You know, was it what's going on here? I just couldn't quite figure it out. And then I said, well, maybe I can test it on this little 9-pin thing over here. I can come in with RX data here and come in, and I go, oh, wait a minute, it goes through a different resistor. It comes in through this way in a different resistor. And then I started thinking about it. Oh, wait a minute. R27 and R26 are different values. And R27 is a 47K resistor, but R26 is only a 10K resistor. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. That's because the RX data on the 9-pin was expected to be plus or minus, or 0 to 5 volts, and you're generating a current, so it's 5 volts through the resistor. But R27 is 47K. If you send 5 volts through 47K, it's a much, much, much lower current. And so what I did was I changed R27 to 10K, and poof, everything now magically works. Pin 4 toggles up and down, and everything is fixed. So the thing was set up for old school RS-232 things. Now, if you're using one of these USB to RS-232 converters, it does not convert it to plus and minus voltages. It converts it to 0 to 5 volts. And so it does not work in the circuit. What I decided to do was I decided to change R25, change R27, and change R28. All of these I changed to, they used to be 47K, I changed them all to 10K. And so that's my fix on the board. And now it works just great. And everything's fine. I've been able to transfer files to the Osborne. Everything is working good. Now, one other thing that I am investigating, let me show you a different thing here on the board, on the schematic. So I talked a little earlier about the converter, this clock generator here. It's not a clock generator. It's just a divider. It's an LS163 4-bit counter. And it's set up so that when you bring a clock in, it divides it by 13. It's wired as a modulo 13 counter. And so it takes the half a megahertz signal, divides it by 13, and then internal to the modem chip, it divides it by another 16, and that gives you 1200. That gives you 1200 baud. Now, if you look here, there's a JA1, and the default for JA1 is installed. And what I did was I removed J1. This is all in the documentation for the Osborne. If you remove J1 and then converts this to 2400K. So I did that. I pulled off J4, made it go to 2400K, twice as fast. Everything seems to be working just great. There is another hack that you can do on this thing, and you basically, instead of bringing clock up on this pin here, which is a half a megahertz clock, you cut this wire and you take it over to a 2 megahertz clock. You do a couple other cuts and jumps, and you bring in the 2 megahertz clock, divide it down, and generate a 9600 baud. And I might try that in the future. But for now, I'm going to run it 2400. That seems to be working just fine. And for the file sizes I'm transferring, it's not very painful. So leaving well enough alone. Anyway, so there I go. I've got it, got the serial port working, and should be able to move on from here.